Go. Hey guys, David Archer with the Elite Edgecast, with my friend Dani, who is a super amazing person, inspirational in her own right, and going to rule the world one day. So Dani, just real quickly, I'll give you the floor. Give us a brief intro into where you are in your life right now, I think is the most exciting part, and what your plans are.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm 26 years old, and I actually was a bodybuilder / personal trainer when I was 24. And I won a few shows, and then I got diagnosed with autoimmune disease, and I couldn't walk for 4 months, and I ended up changing my whole life, my whole views on nutrition, and I pretty much came down to the fact that veganism cures, prevents, and reverses most diseases that I've noticed. And just because you have abs or triceps or biceps or deltoids doesn't mean you're healthy. That was something that really hit me across the head because I was like super lean, but pretty much dying on the inside. And so I realized that abs are not an indicator of healthiness, they're just an indicator of leanness. So with that being said, I have been really just exploring the veganism world, and I am starting to speak about that now at corporations and events, as well as I started a company called Health Immersion, and you can go to my website. It's healthimmersion.us, and you can just figure out what that's all about in the first video. I also have tons of like personal development videos, financial videos, pump up videos on there. So not by me, but by others. So if you just are interested in looking at those, you can. But other than that, I'm just grateful to be here talking to you.
Awesome. Technical question. Guys, if you're watching, I have never used Zoom before, and Dani is the one that kind of keyed me in on this app. Is there a way for me to click the screen so that we're sort of side by side?
Go on my face. Actually, yeah, go on my face and click the gallery view. There we go.
Right here? Okay, perfect. Okay, well, we're top to bottom, but that's speaker
Maybe
view.
you can click it again.
I think speaker view. No, this works. At least we're even. Perfect. Okay, so we were just kind of bullshitting around for like the last 10 minutes before you even started recording. And you mentioned one of your mentors, and that you learned something specifically that he calls the PACE system.
Yes. Okay,
so you're super excited about that. So let's jump in on that. Let's talk about guys. You'll get to learn more about Dani. I'm sure if you got a bio, if you go to her website. But talk a little bit about that, and then why is that so important to you, and how has that sort of influenced you leveling up?
Okay. Please take my advice with a grain of salt. But if you want to get a really good explanation of this, you can go on tylopez.com and watch any of his videos. And he also does free live calls all the time. So just sign up for his email list and he'll send you that. And they talk about it all the time. But what I've gotten so far is that he made this himself, and he's extremely intelligent. Okay. He's like worth millions of dollars. He owns tons of companies that he started himself. And so there's four letters in this acronym, PASE: practical, action-based, social, or emotional. And the reason that this is important is because the guy from the book, The Art of War, or the Art of War, Lao Tzu or whatever, he says, actually, no, it's this book right here. Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker, who was like a billionaire. And in it says, you need to know thyself, because for every battle, if you don't know yourself, for every battle you win, you will lose one. And so it's just kind of like going back and forth. So if you don't know yourself, then you're pretty much screwed. So you need to figure yourself out. And another way this could help you is if you're trying to get, a loan from somebody, or a venture capitalist loan, or whatever, you're just trying to get someone to invest in your company, knowing what type of person they are will help you approach them better. So if you are talking to a person who's an emotional based person, and you come at them like in a practical way, like, okay, here's your ROI, and you'll get your money back in 5x years and A, B, C, D, they're not really going to be that interested. Yeah, it's going to hit some information that they need to know, but they're not going to be that interested because you need to come into it as feeling. This is how I feel about this, and if we make this will have this feeling in this environment, and that will get them more attracted because they're all about feeling and emotions. At the same time, if you come at them and they're an S, so that's social, right? And you come at them with like all practical stuff again, that wouldn't get them as far as if you come into them and you're like, hey, so I really want to meet you on Thursday at 6:00 at this bar. Can you come do that? It would be better to talk about it there where they're able to people watch, have a good time, maybe drink a little bit and get relaxed, or just like meet people and socialize. That's going to work way better with them than like sending them a proposal with a bunch of numbers on it.
Yeah. So basically you're learning, in this particular context, you're learning which style of communication works best for the individual. Right. What we want to hear about is what style of communication allowed you to find. How does that work with you? That's what you told me about earlier before we hit record.
Yeah.
So a little bit on that.
Okay, so the video kind of messed up. Did you basically just say like, what am I and how does that affect me?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm an A, and by the way, you can be all four. They would just be in what order, right? So I would say I'm an A, and then a P, and then an E, and then an S. I am social last. I do not like being social. I could stay in my house all day and be totally fine with that. You know what? Maybe when I'm like a multimillionaire, I'll be social because I won't be so worried about improving myself and, making that dough. But right now, action is my thing. And so one of my biggest flaws is procrastination. And I start tons of things. I have no problem starting things, but I have tons of problems finishing things. And I've recently just had a really, really good idea that would make me money and everyone around me money, actually. And I'm basically, I really want to get this investor that I met in LA to invest in this inn that's for sale in my hometown. And it's $1 million with everything that I put into it, construction and rezoning it and everything. And so I started it, right? And then I started procrastinating. And I was like, oh, I'll get it done or this and that. And I learned at Ty's event that if you're an A and if you struggle with finishing, then you need a practical person in your life. And most of the time, you need it to be an assistant. That way, they can help you finish things. And so I hired a girl that I used to work with at a restaurant that I thought had a lot of common sense and would work really well with me. And I pay her $10 an hour, and she helps me get so much done. And it's been just so productive. I think you've been working with me for like a month. Yeah. And I've gotten more done in this month than I pretty much would have ever gotten done on my own, ever.
Yeah. So how did you go from that state of sort of procrastination to finally pulling the trigger and saying, I'm going to get somebody that's going to help me move forward?
You know what? I have this envelope. This is like my bank account, right? Oops. Let me just not flash my money. But it's like my bank account that I have at home, and I have different files in there for what I want to spend for. So like I have the file in the front, and that's just like all my money, and then I break it down to I save up for conferences. I have a conference budget so I can fly and go there. And I also have a other budgeting. And so what I did was just I just put a card in there for her, and I put $100 in there. So that's 10 hours of her time. And then every time she came over, I would just subtract it. And then I would go to work because I have tons of other jobs, but I work at night at a bar. And so I would come home and immediately just put another $100 in her section. Right. So I guess just putting money where my mouth is.
Say that last.
Oh, I said, I guess I just put money where my mouth is. I mean, money's very important to me. Also, something that Ty talks about is figuring out what motivates you. So there's four of them again. And it's like, you know, money, right? Soulmates, like finding your perfect soulmate, because that really motivates a lot of people. It motivates me like crazy, but money motivates me more. And then like moving forward. So just like not being where you were, or and I forget the fourth one all the time, but money motivates me. So if I put $100 down in this little envelope, now I'm going to take it more seriously, you know, and I'm going to have 10 hours every time. And then once she started coming over and I was getting to like the 8th hour and the 9th hour, I realized that she got more done for me than I had gotten done for myself in a while. So then I was like, heck yeah, we put $50 more in there. We put $75 more in there, whatever. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And I think that speaks a lot to like I said a moment ago, like this is fueling your dream. You know what I mean? Like you're leveraging your time, you're doubling your efforts by having someone work with you in a way that makes sense for you.
Yeah.
You know? And I would say definitely for myself, I get a lot done. Like I'm like, from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I might not go super fast, but I'm definitely getting a lot of things done. But I will say, if I feel like I'm stagnant, man, that eats me alive. If I feel like I'm not moving forward or expanding, like I'll go crazy. You know what I mean?
Do you think that, do you ever feel like maybe, because I feel like this too, I'm busy all the time, but sometimes I feel like I'm just busy and I'm just like putting things in my path so I don't stop moving, but it's not getting me anywhere, right? That's what I struggle with.
I'm definitely, for those of you who are listening, these are two really cool contrasts, because some folks will use activity to avoid doing stuff, you know, to avoid moving forward. For myself, I have a daily action plan that I use for myself. I use for my clients, that every day I start, you know, I fill this thing out. I write it by hand because it's super important, guys. Doing stuff on the phone or typing it out, it's not the same. You have to do it kinesthetic. You have to put it and imprint, that is what we call it, into your brain for that day. So what I'll do is I'll write this thing down, and then once I'm done, I'm going to work it from bottom to top, all the way up to what I call my vision statement, right? And that's like the end goal. So for myself, to answer your question, Dani, I'm busy all the time, but pretty much everything I do is on that list, you know, and I don't necessarily, you know, I don't necessarily put in go work out, eat lunch. Like those are things I'm going to do obviously anyways. But yeah, that list is crucial to my daily success.
I agree with that, man. And I have a list too, but I'm trying not to make so many lists anymore, because Ty says, and you'll hear me say that a lot, so I'm just going to apologize. I'm going to say Ty says. Yeah. I just love this man. He's so awesome. So Ty says that broke people make lists, rich people have people that make lists. And I thought that was really, it was a shot to my heart, man, because I make so many lists. And so right, because he said he had the owner of the Mavericks. Mm-hmm. Who's the owner of the Mavericks?
Oh, I don't have a clue.
He's a billionaire, and he's on Shark Tank.
I do know what you're talking about. What the hell is his name? Anybody who's watching this, please don't click away just because I don't know the name of this guy. Shark Tank. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I don't know. I can't remember. I'm sure it will pop up in my head. But he just like stopped by Ty's house the other day, because I follow him on Snapchat, which we'll talk about Snapchat here in a second, David. You need to get on Snapchat. It's the future.
Get on the Snap.
Yes, because especially with someone like you who has abs and whatnot, people are very interested. I mean, a lot of people, when they look at us, they think, oh, they're just lucky. Like they're just like that. They don't see the hard work that is put into like the eating and the cooking and the prepping. And Snapchat really gives that play on play. Like people see, oh my gosh, okay, they actually are going on the run. Oh, they actually do go to the gym 4 days a week. Like really awesome. Changed a lot of people's opinions about me. Like they trust me a lot more. Anyways, not Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, yes.
That's it.
Mark Houston. So he was over at Ty's house. Yeah, he was over at Ty's house like a month ago, and that's what Mark said. He was like, I used to make lists all the time before I had personal assistants, and now I have personal assistants that make lists for my personal assistants. And so there's actually he's crazy. He's crazy smart, really interesting.
So this is super important for those of you who might not be in a place where you feel like you need an assistant yet, or maybe you can't afford one. That doesn't mean stop making lists. Like there's definitely super crazy effective ways at managing your goals day to day, managing your daily strategy that will ultimately put you in a place financially. Then you can afford to say, teach that list making to the next person. Say, okay, this is how I want you to manage this. Move forward with that.
Yeah, so definitely don't get stuck and think, oh, well, I'm not just going to make lists. But just learn that you have to grow and start delegating all your stuff out, because at the end of the day, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and have people working for you, you have to start somewhere sometime, like employing people.
Yeah.
So Samantha's officially my first employee. It's terrifying.
That's awesome. So what's the big plan? Tell us a little bit more about Health Immersion, and like, why did you start this? What's the dream? What direction are you going? And more importantly, because I do want people to take away at least one or two really solid actions. And I think one of them we've kind of already touched on, getting an assistant, which is huge. But talk also, if you can, on some of the modalities that you use that allow you to level up individually.
Okay. Well, one, I don't know where my phone's at, but I was going to show you this app that I have. It's called Alarmed, Alarmed. Hey, while you're up, would you mind putting those in there and setting a timer for 20 minutes? And it's called Alarmed. Thank you. And basically you put little alarms on here, and oh shoot, let's not ruin all my technology, but you just put little affirmations, because a lot of the times you'll hear people say like, repeat your affirmations daily, put it on a piece of paper and put it in your pocket or put it in your purse or whatever. But that never works for me, because I change jackets and purses all the time, and I never remember that little card. Yeah, like 20. And so this is an app. And so the ones I have right now, the biggest one that I think has changed right now is I'm Enough. And there's this TED Talk that you can find on YouTube, basically saying that nobody thinks they're enough, right? Everyone has that imposter syndrome. And overall, that enough feeling puts that barricade, and it makes people not reach their goals. So I put enough, I'm enough. It pops up 3 times a day. And every time it pops up, I just click the button, and in my head, I say, I'm enough. And then I do another one that says, I am important. And then another one, I am really good at remembering the names of people, because I think all the successful people I know, they are really good at remembering names. And I just
every single one of them. Yeah.
Right. And I found out something I do, which was so self-defeating and like self-limiting, is when I would talk to people, I would say, hi, my name is Dani, what's your name? I didn't hear it. And then we'd have a conversation, and then I would say, what's your name? I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm so bad at remembering names. And just like verbally saying that, you're putting that into the universe, and it's coming back to you. And so all you're doing to yourself is saying, I'm bad at remembering names.
Yeah, it's a negative reinforcing. If it comes up in conversation, guys, it's called neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes.
Basically, how you say it, you hear it, and the more you affirm that, just like all the other stuff that I'm sure you and I would love to talk about, definitely, and this is a lot of what my academy is about, about the science of retraining your brain. We call it neuroplasticity. And what that means for you is that through simple strategic actions, just like Dani, like what you said, or the initial list making, or I think the envelope is brilliant. Doing that so you've got physical stuff that you can separate. All those things in your mind to act, think, and exude a certain energy. And the more of that energy you exude that talks about your end game, the more that's going to come back to you.
Exactly.
They say the poor stay poor and the rich stay rich, or the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. Well, it isn't because someone is born, that much more gifted. than somebody else. Because there's ungifted people that are rich all the way around the world. There are people who have amazing skills and are brilliant that are dirt poor. You know, it's in the strategies. It's about the self-talk. It's about, you know, extending your reach. And I'll stop there because it's all about that one. So please continue about, you know, what you've been doing at that time.
Let's see. So one thing I wanted to say about what you just said, Peter Drucker, who I was just looking up his Wikipedia. He's one of the first billionaires to ever live. And he basically, what he does is goes to countries, and whenever they're in like drought or recession, he buys everything. And then that way when it comes up, because everything always comes up, right? He buys it, and then he's basically a multi-billionaire, actually. He's dead now. But so one of his quotes is, the ties of habit are too weak to be seen until they're too strong to be broken. And I thought that was really interesting, because what happens is we say, I'm not good at remembering people's names. I'm not good at, until you're like 30 years old or 40 or 50. And then it's really hard for you to break that habit. Yeah. So start where you are now by putting an app on your phone that will help you start saying, I'm really good at remembering the names of people. That way in 10 years, you'll be even better than, and the same thing with the gym. Like, I love those things. You wish you would have started a year ago today. In a year, you wish you would have started today. So just start, right?
A little foreshadowing.
Yeah. And so with that being said, a lot of people question me. Well, and I question this too. They always ask, what if it's not the truth? I feel like I'm just lying to myself. Well, it's fake it till you make it, right? And you have to just, at first, I felt like I was lying every time I said, I'm really good at remembering the names of people. But then what started happening is, in real life, when I was having conversations with people, I would still say it, even though in my head I would be like, okay, don't say that. It would verbally come out of my mouth, but I could at least hear that I was saying it. And then I was like, oh, okay, I said it. I was like, it's okay, I'll fix it next time. And then it just kept getting better and better and better. And now I really am better at remembering the names of people. And I don't say I'm bad at remembering the names of people anymore. So that app, awesome. Check it out. It's called Alarmed. Something else that I've really done to improve myself is conferences. So setting aside $500 a month to go to at least one conference, whether that be for food, nutrition, education, business, whatever, finance. And even though $500 won't get you to the conference, buy your plane ticket, and get your hotel and your food and everything, once you have that $500, once you have the plane ticket bought and the ticket to the conference, then you're more than likely to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, okay, well, it's happening, so I kind of have to figure it out. So I'll give you an example. The first conference I went to was in October. And I'm being completely honest here. My financial situation was not the best. And I literally I found out that 4 of my mentors were going to be there, including Ty. And I was like losing my mind. I was like, I have to be there. This is it. And I had $400 that I could spend, I think it was. Actually, that I had, period, that was, spendable. And the ticket was $300. And the plane ticket was like $150 because it was in Vegas. It was super cheap. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done, right? I clicked the buy button. Like, I put my card information, then I sat there and I just stared at the computer screen. And I was like, right. And then I was like, screw it. And I just clicked the button and I bought the ticket. So I was like, okay, I bought the ticket. So now I got to go do the plane ticket. Same thing. I felt like I was going to vomit. And I bought the plane ticket, and then I had no hotel room. I had no car rented. I had no money for food or anything. And when I went out there, I literally had, I think it was $100 in my wallet. The first night I slept on the ground underneath this table in the conference area. No one knew that I was there. I snuck into this little tiny room.
Awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, it was super crazy. The second night I ended up running into one of the millionaires that was speaking, and we were talking, and I didn't tell anybody my situation because it's embarrassing. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm so broke I can't afford a hotel room. But he was just impressed with my my personality and just like my background. And he was like, so where are you staying tonight? And I kind of tried to lie about it a little bit. I was like, oh, I'm, here or there. And he goes, you're being weird. And I was like, how am I being weird? He goes, you're being weird. You're lying about something. And I was like, all right, I don't have a room, like blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting you a room. And so he got me a room this second and third night. And that event changed my life. I'm telling you, I can't even start the list of things that it did for me. But I've been to 3 other conferences, like basically for free because of that one conference. I've been introduced to people that are making $1 million a month. I have their email now, and it's just changed my life. So go to conferences, because if you feel like you're the only person in your entire life that like reads or watches YouTube videos or listens to podcasts, you'll feel weird. And so it's like a bias. It's called like the social normity bias. So when you go to a conference where a lot of people are doing the same thing that you're doing, it makes you feel better about yourself. So if you're in Herbalife or any type of MLM and you're doing it by yourself and everyone in your family and your friends are like, you're stupid, the Herbalife is dumb, you're probably not going to go through with it. But if you go to one of their meetings or to like a regional meeting or to their yearly meeting that's huge called the Extravaganza, man, you're going to see all these people around the world that are doing what you're doing, and you're going to feel way more better about it and more confident, and then you'll be able to like move forward.
And I think that something that you touched on
that second picture,
that is so super, super important is how many amazing life-changing stories have you heard where it starts out, I was broke.
Yes.
I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't, and the most important thing, I didn't know what I was going to do. But there's this thing that rises up in you, this thing that you can tap into when your chips are down and you're like, screw this, I'm going to take care of my shit. Like, I'm taking care of this. And everybody has it. Everybody has that. I don't even know how to frame this for myself. It's kind of a vulgar way that I put it, but it's basically like, fuck everybody else. I'm taking care of my shit because I got to come first in order for me to take care of anybody else, And so I think when that moment happens, when you start to lift that finger and you get that adrenaline dump because you're about to spend every penny that you've got, and you're like, I know it's going to cost me more to go from the airport to this conference, and you do it anyways, like, that's a risk. That's a huge risk, but you don't get the reward unless you put yourself out there. One of the things I talked about in one of the videos I mentioned to you today was people who can, take themselves out of that archaic mentality, that can take themselves out of their current box and create a much bigger box. Yeah. Recognize that the one that you're in has a door. Let the blinders lift, see the door, and you're going to open it. And pretty soon, later on in your life, you're going to look back at that box that you struggled inside of, and you're like, Jesus, how the fuck did I survive in that thing? Right. Like, that is absurd, And so, once you recognize that door, you got to open it, and you can only do those things when you're on the edge. You can't do that in the center of the box where it's comfortable and it's normal and it's familiar. You have to be on the edge. You have to be used to getting hyped up on adrenaline. You have to be used to being broke all the time. Like a lot of people I know that when they first started making a lot of money, they're like, I was making so much money and I just kept reinvesting into my business. They're like, I was making, $600,000, $700,000 a year, and I was broke. Well, why was I broke? Because I kept fueling the dream.
Right.
And that's huge. You clicking that button, is huge.
And when I first got my dog Rasta, he was a puppy, and he hadn't swam yet, and he was running around this pool, or it was a lake or something, and he was running around, and he was like, he wanted to get in, but he didn't, right? But he wanted to, but he didn't know if he could swim or not. And guess what I did? I went up behind him, and I kicked him into that pool. And when he got in that pool, man, he just started swimming. And now he is like the happiest dog in water. He's so comfortable in water. And that's exactly the same for human beings. Like, you you'll tread around the pool or the lake or whatever, and you'll see how fun it is and how much everyone's having fun, but just making that bounce is like so scary. But if you can just have someone behind you to kick you in, or if you can just like release control of your hand for a second so it can click the button and kick yourself in, then you'll end up swimming. Most people will end up swimming, and even if you like fail, right, you don't really fail because you learn things. So I don't think Vegas was a fail, but I would say that it was very difficult because I had rheumatoid arthritis and I was like flaring up at the time, and I had to sleep on the floor and it hurt my body really bad. That really wasn't a fail, but I definitely learned, like, I'm not gonna do that again.
Yeah. And here's something else, because we've all sort of heard that that saying of a lot of what we're already saying right now, which is you just got to do it. You just got to do it. Like, release it and do this thing. But I'd like to take a minute or so and just kind of dive deeper into that, because a lot of folks, we're talking about that because we're on the other side of it, right? Like we've experienced it in small doses. We've experienced it in big doses. But for those of you who have not taken that leap yet, I just went on a rant yesterday morning on one of my, and I sent it to one of my clients. It was really just for him. But I was driving to work. It was wet. It was raining out. I probably shouldn't have been holding my phone on top of my steering wheel and recording, but I did anyways. But it started by I was looking for my wallet, and I kind of started getting pissed off, you know? And for me, where I am in my life right now, it's okay to be pissed off. Like, emotions are okay. But for those of us who aren't practiced, and this is crucial, those of us who aren't practiced in the skill of managing emotional content, that's a weird thing. That's a scary thing. Just taking the leap is like socially, like you don't want to do those things, you know what I mean? Because you're not practiced at it. So I was pissed off. I was driving. I was like, fuck this, man. I'm getting my phone. And I just went off about anger. And the synopsis of that 5-minute talk was that we live in a society where we are constantly sedated by the rules of society. We are constantly distracted and subdued by social media, by the things that take away our humanity, right? Yeah. Now, if you're watching this, don't put your phone down yet, because it's a really good point. But we live in this space which is so confined. Then, you know, years down the road, we hear about the guy who just lost his shit in the office and just started spraying everybody, you know, and killing everybody. It's some guy that goes home and just beats the shit out of his lover. You know, things like they lose their shit because once they get to that edge, they think it's wrong. They're told it's wrong their whole life, and it feels wrong because guess why? You haven't experienced that. You haven't been told, taught, and learned the skill of managing your emotional content. So there's that portion of it. Then people say, screw it, I'm all in, and they lose their marbles. They're experiencing something that, again, is so new to them. The action of it now feels wrong. The result of it they think is automatically going to be wrong. And that's what's so screwed up about this whole thing, is that for those of you who have not taken a leap, even if it's like talk to the girl, or if it's ask for the promotion, or ask for a day off so you can go to a conference. If you haven't done those things, you haven't stepped up into that anger, into that fear. You haven't used that fuel, because all these emotions are tools, right? All these emotions are energy that we get to use to pummel whatever action that we want. So I'll kind of peel back on that because I know I'm kind of going on a rant again.
No, actually, I have a great example of what you just said. My cousin, who's one of my best friends, she's younger than me. She's just like a younger version of me. It's crazy. And we really connect. And she has a corporate job. I've never had a corporate job because I just am an entrepreneur at heart, and I can never work for somebody. I always get fired. And so she's not like that. She's very submissive and will do, you know, hold her feelings in and not cuss people out or tell them what's up. So she's working at this job right now. She hates it. Like, she talks about it all the time, how much she hates her job. On the weekends, she'll post on Sunday, like, oh my gosh, Monday's coming. I hate Monday. You know, that type of.
God, that makes me want to throw up that feeling.
Oh my gosh, I know. So it drives me crazy though, because we lived together in Austin for about a year, and I really tried to pump her up. And at the time, she didn't want to be pumped up. She was going through some things. Well, now we don't live together. She lives in Dallas as well, but she's doing everything that I said naturally. Like, she doesn't think I told her, but I did. It was like a year ago that And so
Hey,
now
at
she's
least
working out. What?
at least you planted that seed.
You know what? And I have to learn to be patient when I plant seeds because it takes so long for them to come around. But and now I'm planting seeds in her that I know will happen in like a year or two. And this is exactly what we're talking about. So she's still in that mentality of my work controls me. So she just became vegan. She's very, very passionate about it, very interested in it. And there's this event that I wanted to take her to, and it was on a Tuesday, all day. And she was like, I can't ask off from work because I need the money. She currently had told me that she had saved up a bunch of money. She had money in her savings account. And I was like, so you're not going to go to this vegan event because you don't want to ask off for work? She's like, no, I can't. And I'm like, yes, you can. And she's like, no, and that's just your lizard brain going absolutely crazy. Like, if I ask off for work, they're going to think this, blah, blah, blah. And it goes down to like, I'll get fired. I won't be able to pay my bills. I'll die. Right. But it's not the case.
Like the lowest common denominator.
Right. And it's like, okay, so I said, how much do you make an hour? She said, $13 an hour. So we did the math, and it was like she works $8 an hour, 8 hours a day. So she would be making X amount for the day that she would miss if she went to the vegan event. And it was like $80-something. Can you do the math on that? Yep. I don't know, $80-something. $13 an hour for 8 hours. And so let's just say it was $86. So I asked her, at the end of your life, when you're sitting on your deathbed, are you going to look back? Oh, it's $104. Are you going to look back and say, man, I'm really glad I saved that $104? Or are you going to look back and say, man, I'm really glad I got to hang out with my best friend. I got to go to an event that was my passion. I got to meet people that are in the same passion. What do you get? You're not going to give a crap about the $104, right? Yeah. Or your job. You're not going to think anything about your job except for it ruined my life, right? So, for example, I had to quit Carrabba's. I technically got fired, but I technically quit because they wanted me to work on Christmas Eve. And I'm like, absolutely not.
Wrong answer.
Right. So I'm like, absolutely not. What if anyone in my family passes away and this was the one time I could have seen them and I missed it because of work?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. So that's why I know I'm an entrepreneur at heart. But anyways, back to what you're saying. It's just, so my friend Peter is the same way. He has $1,000 in his saving account. He doesn't know what he wants to do, but he wants to do something in metal, and he's on vacation right now, and he's about to go home and get a new job. And I said, look, there's this entrepreneur event in LA, and it's all about finding your passion and finding what you want to do. You should come to it. And he was like, I don't know, Dani, I don't feel comfortable with that. I need to have money. I don't have a job. And I said, oh, thank you. And so I said, okay, it's only $600, and that's including the airfare. I got him a free ticket to the event, and so that would include our hotel and food and everything. And I said, so why don't you want to go? He was like, cause I need that $1,000, and I'm not gonna, third drawer on the right. He said, I'm not going to lose my apartment just so I can go to this event. And it was so mind blowing. It's like, you're not going to lose your apartment even if you couldn't pay your rent, which I figured there's something you could do to make whatever, $650 for rent. Even if you couldn't pay it, you have a mom and dad that are completely stable with finances, right? You could ask them. You have a best friend that's completely stable. You could ask him. You have me as a best friend. I don't have a lot of money, but I would find money if you needed it that bad. Yeah. If worse comes to worse, your apartment would not be paid. You would get charged $50, or whatever, $10 a day. And you would just pay it whenever you could. And let's say, you couldn't pay 2 months in a row, then maybe you'd lose your apartment. But even then, you're moving with your mom, you're moving with your friends, you're moving with your grandma. You're not going to die, bro. You're in America. It's 2016. You're not going to die. And the chances of you finding something at that conference that's going to change your life, whether that be an information nugget, a best friend, a future work buddy, whatever, that is way more benefit. Yeah, a wife that is someone you're interested in, that's a way more better outcome than oh, I'm really glad I saved that money and didn't go and I'm living in this apartment that does nothing for me.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing as well, because you can use, if you want to kind of combine those 2 points, is that he's looking at what he has and saying, dear God, I hope I don't lose this, rather than going, recognizing, okay, well, where I am is temporary, and I'm looking towards, like, I'm not running away from anything. I'm running towards something, right? Like, what's the main dream?
Right.
And, for those of you who are listening or watching and you don't know what you want to do, if you're not sure what direction you should take, then use that emotional energy, use that emotional content to fuel your job, which is now finding out what your calling is. Like once you find what you're supposed to be doing in this world, things become a little bit easier. Decisions become a little bit more clear, and the people that you need to have in your life will begin to appear, and the ones that don't need to be there will naturally begin to kind of relegate themselves out of the picture, I think. So,
hey, can I have 30 seconds really quick? I just need to send her off, and I'll be right back.
Sure.
30 seconds.